Article is today's bum could be tomorrow's hero. Now, instead of wasting my time explaining what hero is, I'm going to have my secretary and caretaker read right now some one-liners which will help illuminate what this article is all about. So I repeat myself. I'm not going to define the hero. I'm going to discuss, my caretaker is going to discuss various line items. She'll read them, and which will help explain what I mean by hero. Now, my caretaker and secretary is a married Filipino lady with 5 children, and who's doing an excellent job of assisting me in the late stages of my life, especially with the problem with my eyes, because now I can no longer read and write. So I need help. And instead of reading and writing, I vocalize. At the present time, my secretary is holding the phone, and I'm speaking, and she's making a picture of me as I'm speaking. Now here's my secretary to read to you these one-liners, which I will cover, most of them, in the narrative I'm going to vocalize later on in this discussion. Secretary, it's yours.
Okay. You don't know what tomorrow will bring? You can start your life over right now. Dress up and show up. Don't shoot yourself in the foot. Live in the solution and not the problem. And the last is living life on light terms.
Now those one-liners will help explain, I hope, to you what I mean by hero. Now the first story I'm going to tell is a personal story about me. It's very difficult to discuss certain episodes of my life which are related to my active alcoholism, which blossomed in 1967 to 1970 when I stopped drinking. This first story will highlight for you the depths that an alcoholic like me can go to. And if you saw me in the autumn of 1968, laying in the street in New York City on 2nd Avenue and 2nd Street, I was passed out, I was drunk. Anything could have happened to me while I was laying there. The section of New York I was in is a very dangerous place. And I'm certain as people walked by and saw me laying there, I'm going to surmise they could have said, "Look at that poor guy, he's drunk. Somebody please help him. What a tragedy." Who knows what they would have said to themselves, seeing this 6'1", 230-pound guy passed out on the streets of New York. But my friends, as I said, today's bum can be tomorrow's hero. I finally stopped drinking on December 7th, 1970. And thanks to Alcoholics Anonymous, I have stayed sober all these years. And when I retired from banking on December 5, 1998, I had risen myself to Chief Financial Officer and Executive Vice President of a billion-dollar bank in Nevada. So the point I want to make here is that when you see some poor guy like me laying in the street, don't say his life is over. You don't know what tomorrow is going to bring, which is one of my one-liners in which I started with. You just don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. Maybe the theme of all these points should be hope. There's always hope for somebody who looks like they're down and out. Alcohol, gambling, whatever the illness might be. You don't know what tomorrow is going to bring.
You can start your life over right now.
When I was a student in high school, in my junior year, I became a real troublemaker. It was a Catholic high school, and I really can't recall what I was doing, except the Christian brothers who I had on a regular basis were slapping me around pretty good. If I had to guess what I was doing, I was probably saying, yes, but. Yes, but. I didn't know you don't talk back to the Christian brothers. So in my junior year, I was out of control in school. My grades were failing. In fact, I was not going to school. I went occasionally, but I played hooky. So the principal called in my mother. Now, my mother thought I was a saint. She, first of all, I don't think she understood what the principal was saying about her son. But they took me back to school again. And I was also back in school when I was failing my subjects and playing hooky again. This time, the principal said, "We want to see your father." And I went, "Oh my God." My father and I never got along. Never. Um, I will not go into all the details about my childhood. That's another story. The point here is that the principal wanted to see my father, and I didn't know what was going to happen when my father came in to see the principal. So my father met me at the school. We went to see the principal, and the principal outlined I was failing my subjects and playing hooky. And he said, "You're the father. You got to straighten him out. If you don't straighten him out, we throw him out." And he's through here. Well, my father and I left that principal's office. We walked up Second Street a distance. My father hadn't spoken to me at all. In fact, he didn't say a word to the principal. He just listened. But finally, my father turned to me on the street and he said to me, "You know what? You are a wise guy. I don't care what the hell you do. You want to quit school? Quit school. You're a bum anyway." And we kept on walking. Well, a moment of clarity came along. The man I hated the most in the world, my father, said to me, "I don't care what you do, but you are a bum. You are a wise guy." All of a sudden, I said to myself, "I'll show him. I'll finish high school." So I turned the tables around. In my junior year, I started getting passing grades. I got promoted to the 8th grade of my senior year in high school, and I went on to graduate in 1951. But here's another example. You don't know what's around the corner. My father, the principal, my teachers, they're all saying, "I'm a wise guy, he's a bum, we're going to throw him out of school." And yet, I got a moment of clarity when my father said, "I don't care what you do, you are a bum. You want to quit school? Quit school." At that moment, I said to myself, "Okay, this wise guy is going to finish school." So again, you can't count the drunk out. You can't count out a problem child. You don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. Along the same lines here, when I was in the Navy during the Korean War, I sustained an injury while at sea, and I lost most of my left hand. I really can't recall my mental state when I found out what had happened to me, because when I came to in the hospital, I was all full of bandages, and I didn't know really what had happened. I knew there was an accident, but I didn't know the details. Eventually, 2 doctors came in, and gave me the sad news that they could not save most of my left hand. They had to cut it off. It was squashed between, they couldn't save it. I may have cried at that point because I had aspirations after being in the Navy, playing professional baseball or professional basketball, because I was very good at it in my school days. Eventually, they took me out of a private room and put me out in the ward with other injured military guys who were serving during the Korean War. One of the older members, who was a World War II veteran, he came to me and he said, "Young man, the other guys are making bets how long it will be before you go nuts when you realize that you've lost your left hand." It seems that there were other guys they had encountered in military hospitals who had sustained amputations or whatever, and they went crazy and wound up in the psycho ward. To tell you the truth, I think I was kind of suicidal when I realized my sports career was over. But that gentleman who told me that my other patients in my ward were making bets how fast I would lose my brain and go nuts and wind up in the psycho, again, the moment of clarity came. And I said, I'm not going to go psycho. I'm going to fight this amputation and I'll have a decent life, which I've had. So again, you just can't count the drunk out. You don't know what's around the corner in a person's life. That moment of clarity will come along and they will change. Now, in the same line of thoughts, when I came home from the hospital, I was full of bandages, and eventually I was allowed to visit my parents and visit my girlfriend. This girlfriend I had for a couple of years before I went into the military, and I will say I loved her very much. But she really had no respect for me because she would say to me I was not very smart, and her brothers were a lot smarter than me. But she would say, as long as you can play for the Yankees, I'll stay with you. But if you can't, I won't stay with you. Well, now that I was an amputee, it was obvious I was not going to play for the Yankees. So one night when her and I were walking up the street in New York City, she said to me, Ed, I have to break off our relationship because I'm afraid you're going to wind up selling pencils on the corner and you can't take care of me. So I said, Elaine, I'm sorry you feel that way, and that ended our relationship. But here the last best. A short time thereafter, I started going to college. And I found out I wasn't stupid. I just didn't know how to study. And all of a sudden, I'm getting good grades in college. I had enough money to buy a car, and now I had a car. I'm going to college. And this girl who had kissed me goodbye approached me and said, Edward, can we go to my house? I want to talk to you. I said, sure. So I went to her house. There was nobody home but her and me. And she said, Ed, I still love you. And I'm so happy for you. You're going to college. You have a car. In fact, if you want, sexually, you can do whatever you want to do to me. Because I'm a changed person and you're a changed person too. I turned to her and said, Elaine, you know what? You disgust me. With that, I walked out of her apartment, never to see her again. The bottom line here is, again, my friends, you don't know what's around the corner. Don't count a drunk out because you don't know what is going to happen in the future. This same girl married somebody else. And years later, I was back in the neighborhood and I ran into her mother. Her mother I really liked a great deal. because she had raised her 6 kids by herself because her husband was a drunk who deserted the family. So a lot of admiration for this particular mother. Well, I met her on the street this particular day, and my career was going well. We were talking for a while, and she shocked me when she said the following. She said, "No, Elaine always regretted what she did to you after you lost your hand. In fact, she got married again, had 3 children, and she had a stroke in her early 30s. And because of the stroke, her husband was threatening to leave her. And she would say to her husband, 'Well, if you leave me, I'll just call Ed, the amputee, and he will take care of me.' Well, I'm glad to say she never called me. If she had called me, I would have said, 'Elaine, you turned your back on me once too often. Now it's my turn to have the last laugh.' Now, at this juncture, I am going to stop this segment of stories. They will be continued on a second edition of the tape, which says, 'Today's bum can be tomorrow's hero.'